to the hole.
What's up, guys? This is Derek here from Under the Gun, and I'm here with Rob Sprance, the founder of RiotCast Network, also the host of formerly The Glory Hole, The Hole. How you doing, Rob?
Good. How are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me here in the studio, which is awesome, by the way. We just had 11 people in here. It was pretty crowded. But,
yeah, I'm sorry if you couldn't see anything. We had you crammed in the back there.
we managed to make it work.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into the whole RiotCast thing before we talk about The Hole specifically. How did RiotCast start? Was this your baby? How far has it come since its birth?
Well, this show, it was just a podcast. I was a fan of a couple of different podcasts, and like everybody on the planet, I'm like, you know what? Let's start our own podcast.
Yeah, we can have one too.
Yeah, we can do one too. So what I wound up doing was I bought a couple of microphones. I bought some equipment. I had some engineering experience. So I wound up doing a show with a couple of people just out of my office, you know. So the place would close down. We would set up the microphones, and we would just do a show. And I think because it was called The Glory Hole at the time, good or bad, we'll get into that in a minute, it did get a lot of attention in the beginning, and we started to grow a little. And I had a few other friends who also wanted to do podcasts. Kevin Kraft, who now does one called Mad Scientist Party Hour, and my friend Dr. Stacy, who hosts now Why You Suck in Bed. They both wanted to do it at the same time, so I said, you know what, let's start a network. So we started with that, and then we added a show called The Jersey Jerks, and they knew Robert Kelly, the comedian, and that's where things really started to steamroll. We added Robert Kelly, we added Jim Florentine all in one shot, and we really started to grow. And we had to change the name from Glory Hole Network to RiotCast, as, you know, Bobby Kelly would be like, dude, you can't go on TV and say Glory Hole Network, and he was absolutely right. And that was hard, it was hard for me to give that up, but he was absolutely right.
Well, you want it to be taken seriously and more professional.
Of course, yeah. You know, because in the beginning it's a goof, and then all of a sudden you realize, well, this is not a goof. This is becoming a thing. So now we have Nick DiPaolo. We have, oh my God, I can go on. Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarlane, My Wife Hates Me. So many great shows, and it's really growing a lot since then. It's only the course of 4.5 years. So
when you first started putting out content collectively as a network, did you always have the app? Because I've got the app on my iPhone. I know you've got the website, which you just redid and looks awesome.
Right, thank you.
So how did you initially deliver your content compared to now where you are?
Initially, it was just a website and iTunes. We sent everybody to iTunes or the website. And the website, the one that was just replaced is the second version. The first one I did, it was the most primitive piece of shit you could imagine. But at the same time, you know, you only can do as much as you can do. And back then, I was like, wow, this looks great. But in retrospect, like I cringe when I look at it now.
So bringing on more comics obviously has grown the success of RiotCast.
Big time.
You said that you met Robert Kelly through Jersey Jerks.
Yes, exactly. Marco from the Jersey Jerks introduced us, and if I don't mention that, he gets on my case about it. So yes, he introduced us. Yes, exactly. But then I said to him, I said, well, you can't take credit for the whole thing because that's like if I introduce you to your wife that your baby is my son.
Yeah.
But no, I bust his chops. But yeah, he connected us, and it was a great day because I sent an email to Jim Florentine. He had no idea who the fuck I was, and I sent him an email and invited him to join the network. He never replied. It was fine. But I spoke to Robert Kelly, and he was agreed to join. And then just before he hung up, I said, hey, Bobby, I have a question for you. Would you mind if I already invited Jim? He's not going to reply, but if he did, would you mind if he joined as well? And he said, no, that'd be okay.
Yeah.
Then the next day, Bobby called me and said, Jim and I are both on board. He called Jim.
Awesome.
He got Jim on. And, you know, Bobby's been responsible not only for teaching me about how the business works, but a lot of the big shows we have now we wouldn't have if it wasn't for Bobby.
So I know, speaking of Bobby, you just started doing live. Well, I don't know if you just started. You've been doing live events. The first one I went to was Voss and Bonnie's My Wife Hates Me.
That's one. I think that's the third one. We had 2 RiotCast nights. Actually, the first one was just RiotCast night stand-up. I'm sorry, I didn't even get to ask the fucking question.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, the first one was just a RiotCast night, which was just stand-up from the comedians on RiotCast.
So it was just like a sponsored event kind of thing.
Right, and the second one was twofold, and this was a great one too because it was Bobby Kelly's YKWd podcast. He had Jim Norton and Bailey J on. We did that at the Village Underground right over here. Yeah. And we set up the whole upstairs, so I was able to have all, you know, Colin Quinn was there, and everybody got to sit down at the couch. It was basically like we were backstage at the event. Okay. And then it was a stand-up after that. That was the second one, and the third one you saw was My Wife Hates Me, which was they were fantastic.
Cool. So is that like a big thing you do for, I guess, fan interaction or to bring people closer to the podcast and to the brand overall? I mean,
absolutely. Because you know what? Even as a listener, and, you know, look, I've listened to Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony for years. Yeah. And as you listen to that show over and over again, you feel like you know those people. And what better way other than just listening, is to come down and get to meet the people, because everybody on there, they'll stick around, they'll meet everybody, and it's just another dimension that we want to add, and we keep thinking of new things that we can do. I'm not going to say they haven't been done before, but we try to come up with our own twists on how to do things, and it was great for us. It got us great attention, and we're going to keep doing them.
Well, it kind of is like a big extended community in podcasting and radio and comics and stuff. Because I could tell you a year ago, if someone was like, "Oh, listen to this podcast," I think I don't listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And then it went with me, finally paying for Opie and Anthony, and then this, and then blah blah blah, and then now I'm sitting here with you. So I mean, it's kind of like a domino effect when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the future. It's going to be the future, and I've always said this. And as far as Sirius goes and radio, the second that cars really have their own internet, I think satellite radio is in trouble, and I think regular radio is in trouble. But people have been saying that for years. But the second you can just turn on Stitcher, it's an on-demand world. Everybody wants to hear things on demand.
Click.
Yeah, when have you ever watched a television show now when it airs?
Rarely.
Almost never. You wait till you get home, you eat, you take a dump, and then you sit down.
If I get lucky,
right?
Oh shit, this is on.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But most of the time, you're watching it at your own pace. The only reason why that can't happen with satellite radio right now is because there's not internet in cars, and that's coming. And right now, like, I have a car where you can plug the phone in, and it takes the internet from your phone. So you're starting to get there. The second there's internet right in your car, and you can put on Stitcher, where all the podcasts are, and our podcast, or you can put on Pandora and listen to music.
Or the RiotCast app.
Or the RiotCast app, of course. We'll make one for the car, too. Great. You didn't make more work for me now. Thanks a lot. But, yeah, like, anytime you can do any of those things, it's really, it's going to put a big shot over the bow for Sirius and other people. And I think people are starting to realize that.
I think it's funny that you brought that up, because a few weeks ago I actually interviewed Dennis Falcone from Sirius XM, from Opie and Anthony and stuff. And I asked him, what lays in the future for, satellite radio, terrestrial radio. And his main point was, for as long as cars and trains don't have the internet, that's how long we're going to survive, kind of thing. So it's funny. Once that transition happens, there might be a big paradigm shift with all that. Yeah,
it's also happening faster because, while I'm not just speaking for my network, that's one thing I'm very proud of, is we're not censored at all.
Yeah.
Sirius will say they're uncensored, but believe me, they're censored. There's a lot of things.
To an extent.
There's a lot of things that can't. Yes, you can say the F word and you can do all of that stuff, but there's a lot of content. I've seen the documents. There's a lot of content that can't be said.
Can't be touched.
You can't be touched. You can't go near it. I'm not saying that you want all of that all the time anyway, but not one of our shows has ever been told ever you can or can't do or say this. They can do whatever they want, and I hope it stays that way. I hope once it becomes mainstream, because it will. I hope the government doesn't put their hands in it, and because it's on the internet, I think we're okay. But that's one of the reasons why it's growing so fast, and I'm so proud of our network that we just let our shows do their thing. When they join, they're autonomous. They can do whatever they like.
So everyone that you've got on this network is pretty damn funny. You said it started with just
except for me, right?
With just a few of you, and then you brought on Rob and Jim joined on at the same time. And it's grown immensely since then. How did all these new people start trickling in, and how do you go about choosing who you want to have part of your network?
Yeah, that's a part that is unfortunate, because there are a lot of people who have asked to be part of the network that if we had,
the resources.
If we had the resources, we might think differently. But again, like, it's great to be able to pick and choose what we want to add. And we're more into, there's a lot of podcasts that already exist that have tons and tons of episodes that always write and say, I would like to be part of it. But we're trying to develop new stuff. Like, even though Nick DiPaolo has been around forever, he's been fantastic on radio for so many years. On Nick and Nardi, who was on Free FM. We developed that show from scratch still. That's still, Nick has never done a show from his home, just Nick for an hour, which how he does it and how Jim does it, I still don't know. They can just go on for an hour by themselves. I sometimes have like 8 people in here, and I still like, all right, how much time is left, So we want to develop new shows. So when people come to us that already have tons of episodes out there and they already exist, it's not really something that we're interested in doing.
So who are some of the ones that you've grown from the ground up that you're most proud of? I'm sure everyone, but...
look, My Wife Hates Me is one we're proud of. That was Bobby Kelly's idea specifically. I remember we were talking, and he said that, what about Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarlane together, since they're always fighting? And then they called, and they were interested in doing it. And the phone call, they were fighting.
It was enough.
It was enough. I was, on the call. They were fighting to the point where, like, Bobby's like, look, I'm fucking hanging up. And I stuck on the phone with them.
This is perfect.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Like, if I could have recorded that phone call, that was episode 1.
Yeah.
That one was a great one, and I'm very proud of that. Look, I'm proud of all of them. There was some, like, Weird Medicine with Dr. Steve. We added. They were doing a show already on Opie and Anthony, and they had a podcast, and it died out. Mm-hmm. And he's revitalized by it. He loves doing it. He's so excited to do it. Mandy Statmiller started from scratch. She writes for XO Jane, so she has a podcast called News Horror. She's a fantastic writer. She has great guests on. She's had Fred Armisen on. She's a good interviewer. She has a great show. And all of those, I'm proud of everyone for different reasons. They're all like my little babies. Yeah. But I can't take credit for what the content is because it's all them being them. Yeah. We're good at picking what we think is going to be good, but at the end of the day, we just let them roll.
All right, so enough about everybody else. Let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah.
All right, formerly the Glory Hole,
yes.
but now the politically correct hole.
Yeah, which I don't really know.
You probably apologized about it publicly.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Look, it was about guests. Changing names about guests. And you know what? Out of respect for maybe some of the other shows on the network, too.
Yeah.
Because
it's a reflection on
when you send somebody to the webpage, I'm not saying, I used to get all defensive, like our image is the microphone coming through the hole instead of a dick, basically. Yeah. And I used to get all defensive and be like, well, your image is offensive. I'd be like, well, it's only a microphone. Maybe it's all in your head.
Yeah.
Maybe you're the one who has issues, But at the end of the day, Bobby Kelly pretty much set me straight. He's like, dude, you're never going to get guests with a show called The Glory. And he was right.
Tell me about the show, how it started, where you're at now, and give us a synopsis of what fans could expect if they were to listen to it.
I don't even know what we expect at this point. We started with only a couple of people. It was myself, Chris Fortney, Franco, and Big Mike. But we've grown and grown. We have now Leah Bonham, the comedian, is with us all the time. Lori Levine's with us all the time. We have our mainstays are always there, but we have a rotating group of people that are always changing and keeps things different every single week. A lot of shows have the same people every single week, and it tends to get a little stale. So we like to mix it up and rotate our guests.
So I just sat in on the taping of an episode, which was really funny.
Yeah, my apologies, by the way.
We had 11 people in the room at once.
Yeah, we did. That's the most we've ever had.
So does it get overwhelming to try to handle it once
yes.
when you've got so many people talking at once?
Well, how many times did I tell them to shut up?
At one point, you were like,
right, exactly.
Quiet.
It does, but it's I get it. Like, everybody's excited and they want to jump in and they want to, they want to contribute, and everybody has a joke ready to go, but sometimes you have to eat the joke and just let it pass. It happens. There are times where I crowbar it in like 5 minutes later, or somebody else does, and it just doesn't work. So, it's never 11 people. Usually we have 7 is our cap. No more than that usually.
So you had mentioned earlier that you'll come in with a list of notes and a bunch of topics that you want to get to, and then it kind of goes all over the place sometimes. Mm-hmm. So typically when you have that many people in the room, do you go in with an agenda on what you want to talk about, or you just kind of wing it and say, hell, we'll see where this goes?
There are times I show up with nothing, but most of the time the agenda is the just-in-case agenda. So in other words, just in case it dies.
Fallback.
If there's a moment where you feel that lull, you'll see me look for the paper. But thankfully it doesn't happen much. We have a great group of people, and they jump right in with stuff to say. So most of the time I'll say, I think on the way in, I'm going to start with this. This is what I want to start with, and then we wound up going completely different. Mike comes in and he goes to the bathroom and he smells up the bathroom. Like, we're starting with that.
Yeah. So in the show that you just taped, I heard mention of queefing in the studio.
Yes.
Is that one of the more ridiculous things that's happened in here? Give me a couple of stories.
All right, I can give you a couple. It's not safe for work, I'll tell you that. Okay, I'll give you a couple right away.
Turn your volume down.
Yeah. Number one, Mr. PP was on our show. He fucked a fleshlight.
Jesus.
In the studio, not this studio, by the way, the older one. We probably wouldn't do that here. But he fucked a fleshlight in the studio while his best friend held it.
Jesus.
And it's a man, his best friend.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, Chris Fortney had his ass nared. So we pulled his pants down, spread nair all over it, and we did it with a paint roller and nared his ass and cleaned that up. Let me think what else. Alexa Ames, the adult film star, was here, and she was, she took her boobs out. She was queefing. She deep-throated a Poland Spring bottle. I mean, again, we're a much classier show than that most of the time. But that's the kind of crazy shit that has been known to happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's pretty wild, and we want to harness it and enjoy it while it lasts.
What are some guests that you'd like to have on the show that you haven't had yet?
Oh, I mean, they could go
Countless
on.
list.
Basically, anybody wants to come in. No,
comics, is that like what you're mainly
No,
driven
it's
towards?
not. It's not just comics. I would love to have some actors on. I would love to have. We're going to have Dean Laurie, the co-creator of Arrested Development, on.
Okay.
I want to have more actors on. I want to have more show producers and things like that. And that's part of changing the name,
Yeah.
But I'm open to anything. Musicians, too. I'd love to have some other bands on. We had Richie from Blue Oyster Cult on. I'd love to have more of that.
So you podcast from literally on top of the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
It's fantastic.
Do you just see the best comics in the world walking in and out?
Yeah, like, I went down. We go downstairs one time. Dave Attell is just sitting on the steps smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
It's that cool. It is that cool, and it gives a little cred to us too. And I say, hey, come, we tape at the Cellar. Come on down,
For sure.
But sure, and Noam, the owner, is nice enough to let us use this place. I mean, this is really his second apartment, and we've completely taken it over, and he's totally cool with it. So it's an honor, man. It's an honor to be associated with the Cellar. Absolutely.
Cool. Anything else that we didn't talk about that's important? Anything coming up in the future that we should look out for?
Yeah, we're working on, a lot of Android fans are asking us where the Android app is coming.
Okay.
It is coming, and people say, well, how long does it take to do an app? It takes time. It takes time, and it takes money. So, we're working on that. We have a lot of surprises coming up in the future, too, as far as live events and as far as new shows that we're planning on adding. We're trying to make things different, and including the studio. We're trying to add some technology like phone calls and things like that while we can do it, we're not fully set up to do it in an awesome way. And I'd like to take the show portable from time to time, too. My show and others, take it somewhere and do it like we did at Village Underground.
Very cool.
This is Rob Sprance from RiotCast from the Comedy Cellar in New York City, and you're watching Under the Gun TV.